So you want to travel to China? Well, I've been there, but this episode I'm going to be talking to you about the 5 places I'd recommend visiting, along with some things about its location, religion, history, culture, just so that you are more prepared to express proper etiquette and just be prepared to travel. So let's go ahead and dive in. Now, many of us know about this large country, whether it's because our clothes have been made there, our products have been made there, or just it's sometimes turbulent considered history. But China is located in Eastern Asia, and it is the world's 4th largest country just by geographical size. And it is roughly the size of the United States. Its climate varies vastly across such a large region, so the best time to visit really depends on the region. Northern China, including Beijing, is ideal in the spring and autumn, avoiding extreme summer heat and the winter cold. So temperatures range from 45 degrees Fahrenheit to 75 degrees Fahrenheit during this time. Southern China, on the other hand, including Shanghai and Hong Kong, is best visited in the late autumn when the weather is mild and more pleasant. And biomes throughout China vary quite a lot. But you could have deserts like the Gobi, the tropical regions in the south, temperate zones in the east, alpine conditions on the Tibetan Plateau, and of course its bustling cities and rural farmlands as well. So while you're there, if you get the opportunity to bargain, hassle, etc. in some of the local markets, I encourage you to look for traditional Chinese tea, silk, jade, ceramics, embroidery, and calligraphy. I have a very interesting experience with bargaining there. I did really good the one time while I was on the Great Wall of China because I didn't understand there was a gate just ahead of me. And so I was like, gonna go talk to a friend. What should I suggest for a price? So I think it started like $250. And the more times I kept saying I was gonna leave and go ask a friend, she's like, you won't come back, because I couldn't. I didn't know that. So her price just kept dropping. However, another time I went and I accidentally mentioned that I was going to buy this for a friend. And so when you translate the currency, it's not a ton of money, but it was 10 times the normal asking price. And then a third time I bought this little toy thing. And I remember being so proud because the Chinese person in front of me or the Asian person in front of me had paid more than I had. And if you've heard about it, they call it the white person's tax or the foreigner tax, where people tend to up the price if you look or speak in an American accent. And so I somehow managed to negotiate my way around that one. So I felt really proud. But that's to say, when in local markets, there's some important things to be looking for. Now, in terms of the religious population or dynamics, Buddhism is one of the larger religious beliefs there, making up 18.1% of the population. Christianity is only 5.1%, Islam 1.8%. Folk religion is a little higher with 21.9% of the population, and unaffiliated makes up 52.2% of the population, which is sad. I say that really loudly. It is sad. I wish more of them knew about Christ and his forgiving love, but the truth is there's just been a lot of turmoil in that country. Now, as a Christian traveling to another country, I always find it important to just know kind of the perception of Christians, how they're received. While it's still important to share the gospel, I know that there are different ways to do it depending on how widely it's accepted or how strict different rules are. So with that in mind, I want to share a little bit about how Christians are perceived in China. Specifically, due to the Communist Party Chinese Christians face significant challenges due to the stringent government regulations and increased repression. Communist parties seek to maintain tight control over religious practices, often targeting unregistered or house churches, which operate independently from the state-sanctioned Three Self-Patriotic Movement and the Catholic Patriotic Association. So there are some groups that choose to worship privately in their homes so that they aren't under as much monitored control. But that does mean that when they're found out, there can be some serious repercussions. In 2021 and 2022, multiple incidents highlighted the government's crackdown on Christian leaders and communists. For example, Pastor Xiao was sentenced to 8 years in prison on fraud charges, a common accusation used to target house church leaders. Similarly, the detention of Catholic Bishop Joseph Zhang and the arrest of Elder Zhang illustrate the risk faced by religious leaders who do not conform to state regulations. China has a long and complex religious history, with Confucianism, Buddhism, and Taoism playing significant roles in shaping the Chinese culture and society. The introduction of Christianity dates back to the 7th century, but it has faced periods of both acceptance and of persecution. The contemporary religious landscape is heavily influenced by the Chinese Communist Party's policies, which aim to align religious practices with socialist values and ensure loyalty to the state above all else. So, with that in mind, I always find it interesting to explore a story or a legend from an area, because while a legend doesn't necessarily mean it is part of their religious belief, it can reflect the values and sometimes even the perceptions of a country, perceptions of things from a country. So the legend for today's episode is the legend of Nua. She is a goddess in Chinese folk religion, Chinese Buddhism, and Confucianism and Taoism. So she's represented in a number of different areas. She is said to have created creatures by making them out of clay. So she formed them out of clay, and at first she made animals and different things, but then eventually she started to make people, and she was surprised when they started speaking with her, and she got really excited. So she started making all of these people. Now, there's different stories or theories. One is that she made some people out of brown clay and some people out of yellow clay. There's another one where she hand molded a bunch of people, but then her hands got tired and she took a rope in the mud and just flood mud everywhere. And so that's how she established the two different socioeconomical classes, the noble and the rich and the wealthy, and then the lower class. So that was kind of part of her story. She's also said to have fixed the heavens. So there was a war going on about who would be in charge of the heavens. And a giant hole was torn in the heavens, and water was pouring down over the earth and flooding and killing her creatures. So she wanted to protect them. So she went to this god, which was a tortoise, which is a unique thing to me. But she prayed to him, and he granted her her wish. And so he gave up his 4 legs to become the pillars to hold the heavens back up, because the pillars had broken. And then she collected 5 colorful stones, melted them together, and patched the heavens so that her creation could continue to thrive. She is now seen as the mother of fertility, and just kind of a female leader in a way. So as a Christian, what do I take away from this? Well, I see some interesting parallels here with the flood to the stories that we have in our own Bible. But her flippancy of just like creating these things and then either running out of love for creating, soreness in her hands, just like flippantly throwing the mud around. is very different. Like, I know we say God breathed breath and life into dust, and that's how he made humans. But there was such care and dedication there instead of this flippancy. And they were made equal, man and wife, helpers of one another. Whereas here she establishes a social economical class. So I see some parallels. I also see some clear differences. I think as a Christian, we can clearly say that there's only one God, whereas she is a god. There's other gods warring over the heavens, and then this other god that is this random tortoise. But part of that all stems from their different religions that they all practice. And so if you're wanting to learn more about Buddhism or some of those other Asian religions, I've covered that in some previous episodes. So this episode right here would be a good one to go check out and learn a little bit more in depth about what they believe, why they believe it, etc. From a Christian perspective, I think a really good starting place is talking about that division. That there is hope, that there is love from our Creator, that we are all equal in His eyes and worth paying the ultimate sacrifice, and that He is greater than all other gods, that there are no other gods except for Him. I think that's a great starting point, and from there we can then dive into more stories and personal testimonies of how we've seen God in our adventures, and gotten to know Him personally. With that in mind, one of the Christian places that I want to draw our attention to is the Bible Printing Museum, Nanjing. This is operated by the Amity Printing Company. It is actually one of the largest Bible printing facilities in the whole entire world. This museum offers insight into the distributions of Bibles in China and the global Christian community, with support for Chinese believers, which is crazy because it's in China, in a place where that's not strongly encouraged, but yet it's one of the largest Bible printing companies. What I did find interesting, because I Googled it and was trying to find some pictures, is how few pictures there are out there. So proceed there with caution. But it's an interesting place that may spark some intrigue for you. As a Christian traveler, have you ever felt isolated because of your beliefs? Fearful that there will be pressure on you to compromise on your faith? Hesitant to travel with others because you're not sure what they'll want to do with their free time? Uncertain what options you'll have for finding Christians and connecting while on vacation? Then you've come to the right place. If you want to feel confident that you will have Christian connections when you travel, experience peace, that your love for the Lord will be respected, and boldly step into your God-given purpose and passion for travel with other like-minded believers on vacation, well then mark your calendars for September 16th. We're hosting our first ever Christian Travelers Connection Conference, an online event to help believers make connections with other believers wherever they're traveling. Go to christiantravellers.net/connect to learn more. Now from here, I want to take us to a place of cultural etiquette, language, just a few more cultural details, and then we'll get into those 5 things I recommend. So first of all, the language in China is Mandarin Chinese, which is spoken nationwide. China is also home to a rich tapestry of regional languages and dialects, including Cantonese, Shanghainese, Hokkien, and many others. In areas with significant ethnic minorities, you may also hear languages like Mongolian and others. In terms of greetings, a nod or slight bow is very common. Handshakes are also acceptable. Dining etiquette, you need to wait to be seated, and the host will usually start the meal. Also, it's incredibly rude to point with your chopsticks, so keep that in mind. Personal space, you need to be mindful of your personal space in crowded places, but things can get fairly congested. A respect for elders, We need to just show general respect to their authority and experience. They often bow a little lower as a way of greeting for respect to those authorities. Tipping isn't really custom in most places, and there are some taboo topics such as politics, especially anything regarding Taiwan, Tibet, human rights. It's kind of sad, but I think that's one of those areas where we can see the Chinese Communist Party has had some influence. Now, let's get into what you're really excited about, and that is the 5 things to do and see in this country. Up first is the Great Wall of China. Definitely a unique place to visit, and I highly recommend. The Great Wall of China, stretching 13,000 miles, is one of the most iconic and impressive architectural feats in human history. Walk along the ancient wall, enjoy panoramic views, and immerse yourself in the significant piece of China's history. You can also reflect on the strength and perseverance it took to build the wall, and that can be parallel to our spiritual endurance we're called to have in Philippians 4, verse 13. I can do all things who gives me strength. Now, we might not be building a wall. In fact, in many ways, God calls us to tear down walls and meet people where they're at in the messes of their lives. But sometimes we have to persevere through challenging things. And so I think this is a great testimony to that. Now, in terms of itinerary pointers, here are some I have while you're there. Visit popular sections like Battling and Mutanayu for restored and easy accessible views. For a quieter experience, explore less crowded sections such as Jicheng or Serenity. And then wear comfortable clothing, shoes, and bring water, as the walk can be pretty physically demanding. Now, if I'm being honest with you, I did commit an American cultural offense while on my Great Wall. There was someone walking along. They had Crocs on. And this was a weird time when Crocs were going out of style in the US before they came back into trend. And so I just noticed that a lot of these Asian individuals were wearing Crocs. And the fact that I understood her talking about her shoes and how comfy they were should have registered that she knew English. But with her accent, it just didn't click. So I turned to my friends and said, "Hey, have you noticed that all of these Asians are wearing Crocs?" And it was like this most awkward standoff where like they paused and they stopped and just looked at us. And like, I was so embarrassed. I turned around and I scamper away. And in my embarrassment, I must have just like cowered into myself because my friend said, "Did you hear her?" Apparently, as they were walking away, she shouted over her shoulder, "They're comfortable." Now, I imagine you won't make the same mistake I did, but it's one of those opportunities to remember God steps into our messes. He forgives us. He loves us. And we can learn from our mistakes the next time when we travel. Up next, I recommend visiting the Forbidden City in Beijing. I was there as well, and it's definitely a unique sight. So the Forbidden City served as the Chinese imperial palace for over 500 years and is now an UNESCO World Heritage Site. You can marvel at the grandeur of the palace complex, explore its intricate architecture, and learn about the Chinese imperial history. While you're there, reflect on the concept of kingship and how Christ is our eternal king. Revelations 19:6 says, "On his robe and on his thigh he has his name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords." He is our king above all earthly kings. And while we have this opportunity on earth, whether we have a king, an emperor, a president, whatever government you are under, we also have the opportunity to practice honoring the Lord and who he's put into leadership. I believe it's the 4th commandment that says, "Honor your father and mother," and with that comes all leadership and authority. And showing respect sometimes can be challenging, or especially American culture has a struggle with that. So there is a way, even in this place, to show honor and respect to the Chinese history and leadership that has gone before them. And with that, here are my itinerary pointers. Allocate several hours to fully explore this expansive grounds and its numerous halls. It's a huge place for sure. Visit the Palace Museum within the Forbidden City to see historical artifacts and treasures, and arrive early to avoid crowds and make the most of your visit. We had a tour guide there which helped us interpret and understand just the significance of that. And so I'd also add that pointer too. Next, I'd recommend cruising the Li River. The Li River, flowing from Gujin and Yangshu, is famed for its stunning karst mountain scenery and picturesque landscape. You can enjoy a serene boat cruise, witness some of the most beautiful natural wonders and scenery in China, and take in the tranquil atmosphere. While there, meditate on the beauty of God's creation and the peace that comes from such still waters. Psalm 23, 2-3 says, "He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul." And I hope that in all of your vacations and on this beautiful river cruise, that you can be turning into the Lord, leaning into Him, and experience that refreshing spirit. Now, my itinerary pointers while there: book a boat cruise from Gujin to Yangshu for the best scenic experience. Bring a camera, of course, to capture the unique landscape and picturesque villages along the way. And consider a bamboo raft ride for a more intimate and traditional experience. This next one is another one that's a little hard to pronounce. The Jicheng National Forest Park. It's known for its towering sandstone pillars and is the inspired floating mountains in the movie Avatar, which if you've ever seen, I recommend, but also just looking at these pictures of this place. It's so beautiful, so unique, and like the fog is really like just makes the mountains look like they're floating. While there, you can hike among the stunning pillars, ride the glass elevator for breathtaking views, and experience the beauty of this unique landscape. Of course, reflecting on the majesty and the creativity of God is in shaping such unique landscapes draws us to Psalm 100, verse 24. "How many are your works, Lord? In wisdom you made them all. The earth is full of your creatures." It's just amazing to me. There are mountains all around the world. There is forests all around the world. There are oceans and waters and birds and creatures. But yet each place, it's just a little different. And it just speaks, again, to the love and intention of the Lord. Now, in terms of itinerary pointers, I encourage you to take the Bailon elevator for panoramic view of the park's sandstone pillars, walk along the glass bridge for an exhilarating experience, and plan for a multi-day visit to fully explore the various trails and viewpoints. Now, while I had never done that before, I have been to Xi'an and the Terracotta Army, and so that's my next destination for you. The Terracotta Army was discovered in 1974, and it consists of thousands of life-size clay soldiers buried with China's first emperor, Qin Shi Huang. Witness one of the most significant archaeological discoveries of the 20th century and learn about Chinese ancient history and burial practices while you're there. You can reflect on the themes of legacy and an eternal life. John 14:2, "My Father's house has many rooms. If it were not so, would I have told you that I'm going there to prepare a place for you." This Bible verse comes to mind because as Christians, we have the opportunity to pass on our faith. We have the opportunity to leave a legacy that points to the Lord. And the actions that we have a long-lasting impact. And while I highly doubt that the emperor or let me double check that that's the right, yes, the first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, was a Christian, he did leave a legacy. Now, it was temporal. It's these clay soldiers, and clay eventually will crumble, but our faith legacy in heaven will last forever. So it's just a unique opportunity to think about the impact that we are leaving behind. Now, while you're there, here's some itinerary pointers. Visit the Museum of Qin Terracotta Warriors and Horses for an in-depth look at the armory. Explore the nearby Xi'an city wall and Muslim quarter for additional cultural experiences, and consider a guided tour to gain deeper insights into the history and significance of the army. Now, while I was there, we had a tour guide, and we stopped outside, and there was this kind of unique place where they demonstrated how they made and fired these terracotta soldiers. And these aren't all duplicates of each other. They were each uniquely designed and look like a specific soldier. So thinking of that, that's just crazy, the amount of detail and artistry that truly went into making this destination. And so with that, I also encourage you to maybe visit places like Shanghai or the Polta Palace in Lhasa, Tibet, but I'll let you do some more research on that one yourself. So reflecting on China, it's a vast country. There's too much to summarize. My own experience had little moments like learning about how to use Chinese chopsticks, or how to use chopsticks, learning that watermelon is often the dessert that signifies the end of the meal, what a lazy Susan is, and getting to eat in the world's largest restaurant. Those were just some of the unique experiences I had that we haven't even had time to include in this episode, but you may want to consider for your next itinerary. And I think this is a unique place not only to reflect on history, but to reflect on the Lord and how we can make an impact for His kingdom. Now, this is the part of the episode where I love to share personal testimonies of other travelers who've gone to countries. And if this is you, this is my encouragement to have you send in a video talking about how you saw God show up where you've traveled. Specifically, I'm looking for stories right now from Costa Rica to El Salvador. If alphabetically you visited any of those countries, this is a great opportunity to either send in a short video or write a paragraph that will read of your story. And you can send that to hello@christiantravelers.net. As always, I encourage you to check out this episode because it's a great one to continue to learn more about some unique destinations. And I'd like to go ahead and pray us out. Dear Lord, thank you so much for this unique country of China. It's vast, it's unique, its history has been turbulent at times. Lord, we ask that your name may be known, that people may come to know you personally, that your light may shine into their lives, giving them hope, encouragement, and direction. And with that, I also ask that all those who travel there may get to know your name and get to know your love and kindness and see you throughout this creation. All this and more we ask in your precious name. Amen. Well, Christian traveler, I hope that you've enjoyed today's episode and that you're encouraged to maybe go visit China. But until then, safe travels and God bless.